In the previous episode, Rick's team began their assault on Negan's compound. They had hoped to quietly put an end to everything, but they were inevitably discovered, triggering blaring alarms. Carol and Maggie, who were on watch duty outside, heard the alarm and rushed to support the others. However, Carol stopped Maggie, unwilling to let a pregnant woman risk her life. As the two argued, Carol raised her gun, and Maggie realized there was something behind them. Maggie turned to see a man aiming to shoot. Carol swiftly adjusted her aim, striking the man's arm. She no longer wished to take lives. Maggie wants to go up and kill the man. Carol stopped Maggie and advised Maggie to leave in case encountered something else. When Maggie turned around, she saw 3 unknown women who had arrived silently. The women ordered them to drop their weapons. Throughout the night, these 3 women vigilantly observed the situation within the base. At this time, Rick and his team had cleared the camp and captured one of the men. The leader of the women, named Paula, took the radio to contact Rick, fearing that if they waited any longer, the man they captured would be executed. Rick offered to meet and talk, but Paula, seeing that Rick had 8 people with him, knew they couldn't go out. Instead, she allowed Carol and Maggie to communicate with Rick. Rick suggested an immediate trade, letting them go in exchange for the man's life. Paula initially considered negotiating conditions, but Rick bluntly stated that they had no choice, or else they would have already taken action. Paula thinks about how important it is to them that the man Rick has captured is a doctor, but if they go out in exchange, they may lose their lives. Consequently, Paula decided not to proceed with the trade and planned to find a safer solution elsewhere. Soon after, Maggie and Carol had their heads covered, and they could only sense being moved and eventually placed inside a vehicle. Throughout the journey, Paula used the radio to contact others, reporting the situation at their location and the devastating casualties suffered by their group, known as the Saviors. However, the signal was weak, and the voices on the other end were intermittent, compounded by the frequent use of code words. It was difficult for Carol and Maggie to understand the full extent of their conversation. The car went on for who knows how long. Carol only felt that she was being taken to a dark and damp place. When Maggie's head covering was removed, she was startled by a zombie that suddenly appeared. However, the woman named Paula swiftly killed the zombie. They were then locked in the room. Even their legs were bound with duct tape. Paula warned Carol and Maggie not to attempt an escape as it would only hasten their death. Another woman named Michelle dragged the zombie corpse away, while Carol purposefully or inadvertently left her foot in place. Unnoticed by anyone, a string of necklace was hanging from her foot. At this point, there were cries for help from outside, presumably from a zombie encounter. Paula had no choice but to go and check. Once they had all left, Maggie quickly rubbed against the wall, attempting to break the duct tape, while Carol retrieved the necklace she had just acquired and tucked it into her pocket. It was a cross used for prayers, and she hoped it might come in handy. Just then, footsteps approached from outside. Maggie hurriedly returned to her original position to avoid detection. It was Carol's turn to put on a performance. It even fooled Maggie, making her wonder if Carol really couldn't breathe. However, when the group entered, they didn't immediately notice Carol. They brought the injured man inside and proceeded to tie a rope around his injured arm to stop the bleeding. Maggie continued to shout frantically. Paula grew impatient and removed the cloth gag from Maggie's mouth. When Paula turned her head to look, Carol was indeed gasping for air, tears welling up in her eyes. The fat women couldn't help but mockingly comment on Carol's cowardice and untied the ropes. Michelle also approached, finding Carol's demeanor pitiful and wondering how she had survived until now. Given her weakness, Carol remained silent, continuously attempting to retrieve something from her pocket. The fat woman's was so curious that she pulled it out for Carol. Carol quickly held it in her hand, as if finding solace and security in it. This only intensified the mockery and disdain from the group. Carol's acting skills also impressed Maggie. Paula approached Carol, looking at her and asking what she was truly afraid of. Carol remained silent, maintaining a devout appearance. Paula continued to taunt, asking if she was afraid of death and whether she feared being shot. Carol sincerely replied, "Whether I live or die doesn't matter. I just hope you don't hurt Maggie and her baby." She spoke these words to elicit empathy from the 3 women, hoping to soften their hearts towards Maggie. And indeed, this tactic proved effective. The fat woman was about to light a cigarette but was stopped by the others. After all, there was a pregnant woman among them. After a while, the man began to scream in agony. It should be too painful for the arm, but if untie the rope it will bleed profusely. Paula told him to hold on for half an hour. The scouting team will be here in half an hour at the most. It appeared that they still had teammates. Maggie informed them that his nerves were on the verge of necrosis, and he wouldn't be able to hold on for half an hour. He would likely lose his arm or even his life. They needed to contact Rick and the others. After all, the man captured by Rick was supposed to be skilled in handling injuries. However, Paula, wanting to be cautious, decided to wait until the recon team arrived. Upon learning that he might die, the man's hatred for Carol grew stronger, and he was going to kill her. He questioned why she could sit there so calmly. Paula reminded him that they were hostages and urged him not to act recklessly. This man was Paula's assistant, usually subservient and obedient. But now, seeing Paula protecting Carol, he completely lost his sanity. He suddenly started self-harming, leaving everyone around bewildered. But after all, it was their internal matter. Paula was about to check on him when she was slapped aside. The man glared menacingly at Carol. Maggie immediately intervened, knocking the man down. However, he quickly grabbed Maggie by her hair. Carol pleaded beside them, fearing that the man would harm Maggie. After all, she was pregnant. Maggie was no weakling either, and she rammed through the man. Carol tightly clung to the man's leg. The man was now even more furious as he frantically kicked and punched Carol to let off steam. Paula snapped out of her daze and knocked the man down with a pistol, not knowing if he was dead or alive. How dare he lay hands on her? After a while, Maggie was taken away by the woman alone, trying to extract the location of their camp from her. However, Maggie subtly ingratiated herself with the woman, engaging in conversation about their experiences in the apocalypse, causing the woman to lower her guard. Meanwhile, Carol quietly expressed her gratitude to Paula, thanking her for helping Maggie and herself. Then Carol started talking about her past experience of domestic violence, deliberately trying to evoke sympathy from them and make them perceive her as a vulnerable woman. Paula, however, mocked her, saying she knew what kind of person Carol was and found her pitiful, especially with the cross in her hand, which made her appear even weaker. After a while, Rick and Paula managed to make contact, and they agreed on a meeting point for the trade. However, upon ending the radio conversation, Paula shook her head repeatedly. She felt that something was suspicious about the trade. Rick's voice on the other end was too clear without any interference, indicating that they had traced the location accurately. Paula was clever enough to pick up on this. Feigning fear, Carol assured them that Rick was a man of his word and would not harm them after the exchange. But Paula wasn't buying Carol's lies. She immediately contacted her teammates, who informed her that they would arrive in a few minutes. This made Carol anxious because she had no idea how many people were on her team. Paula quickly called 2 women to join her and prepared to wait at the entrance. If Rick and his group actually arrived, they planned to ambush and eliminate them. Meanwhile, Carol and Maggie would remain locked inside as a contingency plan. The others left. Carol took a deep breath, her face devoid of any signs of weakness. She began to sharpen the edges of the cross and cut through the tape that bound her hands. After escaping, Carol swiftly left the room, searching each room for Maggie. At a corner, Carol spotted the fat woman but chose not to attack her. 1. Finding Maggie is the main thing. 2. She really didn't want to kill anyone. Maggie, 2, was attempting to break free from the tape binding her hands. Carol found the place and quickly helped Maggie untape it. Both of them were relieved that they were unharmed. Carol suggested that they should leave immediately while the others were dealing with the zombies. She genuinely didn't want to kill these people anymore. However, Maggie insisted on eliminating them. These people and their teammates couldn't be left alive. They returned to the room they were in earlier to find the man dead and soon to be turned into a zombie. Maggie came up with a plan. They needed to kill one of the women to obtain a gun. This zombie would be their opportunity. After a while, the fat woman finished clearing the hallway. As soon as she entered the room, a zombie lunged at her, tearing off a chunk of flesh. Maggie swiftly grabbed the woman from behind and subdued her with ease. Maggie continued to vent her frustration, mercilessly pounding on the woman, releasing her pent-up grievances. When Paula returned and witnessed the scene, her anger reached its boiling point. Meanwhile, Carol had made her way to the corridor, only to realize that Paula had strategically blocked their escape route and prevented anyone else from entering. This Paula is really treating them like weak women. Just as they were about to leave, gunshots rang out. Paula pursued them, but her marksmanship seemed subpar. Carol aimed her gun directly at Paula and ordered her to leave. Maggie urged Carol to kill Paula. Paula is also a smart woman, and she acts like she's ready to die when her teammate dies. Carol is tired of killing people. She doesn't want to do any more killing. Michelle, alerted by the commotion, rushed over, continuously calling Paula's name. Maggie approached the corner to check out the situation and knocked Michelle's gun out of her hand. Michelle's blow narrowly missed, slicing into Maggie's abdomen, cutting through her clothes. This also managed to anger Carol. For Carol, children were her bottom line. It is now the familiar Carol, Paula. Meanwhile, sneered from the other side, taunting Carol. "You've killed another one of my friends," she mocked. "I really underestimated you." Paula asked Carol what she had been afraid of earlier. Trembling, Carol approached Paula with the gun and whispered, "I was afraid of killing you all." Paula burst into maniacal laughter. The two of them wrestled with each other, locked in a fierce struggle. Eventually Paula is pushed on top of a steel pipe and impaled, and a zombie quickly bites her, ending her life. Just then, Paula's intercom went off. Their teammates were on their way. Carol calmly picked up the walkie-talkie and then said they were waiting in the slaughterhouse. After a while, their teammates arrived at the slaughterhouse. Carol rushed over, closed the door quickly and threw in a lit cigarette. Flames quickly engulfed the area, and all they could hear from outside were agonizing screams. Carol, who had already killed 18 people, added 6 more that day. Carol grew weary of her current self. She could relate to Morgan's feelings. A few minutes later, Glenn and the others found the place and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Daryl immediately embraced Carol. Rick confronted the captive, informing him that all his teammates were dead, leaving no one to save him. It is best to tell them what he knows. Where do motorbikes really come from? The man simply said that they found the motorcycle while they were out. Daryl clearly didn't believe him. Rick pressed further, asking if their leader, Negan, was in the building last night. The man took a closer look at Rick and replied, "You're right. They are Negan. I am Negan too. We could have had some interesting conversations. Spare my life." Rick thought this guy was toying with him, pulled the trigger straight away without hesitation. Carol felt a chill run down her spine. This is the end times.